Big government Republicans and Democrats were busy shredding the last vestiges of the Constitution. Senators John McCain and Carl Levin want to enact a law that would declare the entire United States of America a battlefield for the military. They're talking about inserting the Army into domestic law enforcement. Senator Lindsey Graham, who supports this bill, says, quote, "The homeland is part of the battlefield, and people can be held without trial, whether an American citizen or not." I guess he hasn't read the Constitution recently. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Douglas Macgregor joins us now. Colonel Macgregor, as always, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thanks, Judge.
I must tell you, I was utterly appalled when I saw this legislation proposed. We didn't learn about it until last night because the committee hearings on it were done in secret, even though the Constitution requires the Congress to do these things in public. And there were no actual hearings, just a bunch of members of the Senate who got together and wrote this thing. And it basically says the president can arrest whoever he wants anywhere in the United States of America and keep them without charging them with a crime, without letting them see a lawyer, without bringing them to a judge for as long as he wants. How is that consistent with the Constitution?
Well, Judge, you're the legal expert, but whenever you suspend due process, which in effect suspends the rule of law, you walk down a very dangerous path and you give authority to your government that it can then wield essentially without restraint. What worries me is that we'll end up creating categories of people who are then subject to arbitrary arrest. And that's dangerous because we don't know how those categories will be defined or interpreted in the future. All in all, it's a disaster, and it's something that should be defeated. You have spent a career in the military. You're also an expert in political science, particularly with respect to its relationship to the military. Do you see a role for the military in domestic law enforcement? Do you see American troops, young men and women, arresting other Americans because the president doesn't like what they've said?
If you are suspected by these activities, do you want to have the government have the ability to send you to Guantanamo Bay for indefinite detention? A suspect. We're not talking about someone who has been tried and found guilty. We're talking about someone suspected of activities. But some of the things that make you suspicious of terrorism are having food, having more than 7 days of food, missing fingers on your hand, having ammunition, having weatherproofed ammunition, having several guns at your house. Is that enough? Are you willing to sacrifice your freedom for liberty? I would argue that we should strike these detainee provisions from this bill because we are giving up our liberty. We are giving up the constitutional right to have due process before we're sent to a prison.
Now, that is entirely true. Senator Graham, who's on the opposite side, who's also a Republican, says, don't worry, terrorists, quote, they should not be read their Miranda rights. They should not be given a lawyer. Now, if we're sure they're a terrorist, maybe you could make a case for that. I wouldn't even buy it then. But that's the whole point. We're not sure they're terrorists. They're U.S. citizens. You're supposed to give them a trial.
Right. I mean, the job to determine whether we should arrest people off the streets here in America for a crime like terrorism, that's the FBI. We have a federal law enforcement agency. It's big, it's bad, it's well-funded. It's got smart people in it. The notion that the military is, going to clash with the FBI? I mean, we've seen that. That's like in movies where they have a coup. Like, no, the FBI picks those guys up, and then they don't turn them over to the military. This isn't Argentina. This isn't a junta.
So here's what you get. You get one small hearing where the military can say, oh, we're damn sure this guy is a terrorist. Not a trial, just a hearing, okay? And then that's it. You've lost all your rights. Now, they can do that on U.S. soil, and, of course, they can do it to U.S. citizens. So if the Defense Department or whoever in the government decides, hey, you know what? We are going to decide that we don't like that J.R. Jackson character. We suspect him of terrorism, and that's it. Off he goes.
It basically means the president, the administration can just say, you're a terrorism suspect, the military takes you away, and we may never hear from you again.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I mean, it sounds too outrageous to believe, but except for the fact that we've gotten so many different outrageous things over the last 10 years that we're starting to believe it, right?
Interesting. I wonder how the American people will feel when they see troops in the streets on a regular basis, something no one now living has seen since it ended the last time in 1876.